Hello, and welcome to Exit to Excel. My name is LaTonya, your untraditional HR business partner, someone who is actually on your side, and also your podcast host. Welcome. Now, on today's podcast, we're cutting through the noise and confusion about what's really happening in the job market because I keep hearing about people making outdated assumptions, and then the media headlines are always, you know, trying to get attention and not really reflecting the reality of the job market from what I'm seeing on the HR side. So, I want to break down for you today the real trends, the real data, and what is actually happening in the market and what it means for your career. So, if you're joining us for the first time, then welcome. As I said, my name is LaTonya. They call me LT. And I've spent 25 years as an HR business partner in Fortune 500 companies and high growth organizations. And over the course of my career, I've laid off thousands of people. And I've been the one to, you know, deliver the news, work with managers to decide who's going to stay and who's going to go. And I've also been the one to draft the talking points. Now, on the flip side, I've also been laid off 4 times, right? So I know exactly how you feel if you've been laid off and how it feels to be told, thank you, but your services are no longer needed. I have been in those shoes 4 times. So I'm probably one of the few people who have a full 360 view of the whole layoff process. Now, additionally, what makes this podcast different and me as well is my extensive AI training and certification. I've had hundreds of hours of AI training because I saw where the job market was going. And so while a lot of career coaches are giving outdated 2019 advice, I am actually giving 2025 AI powered advice because we're in a 2025 AI driven market. And you need to understand how the technology is revolutionizing the way that we work. So that's what make this podcast unique. And I seriously doubt you'll find anyone with this same, portfolio and experience. And I'm choosing it now, post my corporate career, to share the information that I've learned in my experiences with all of you so that regardless of your situation, you can always exit to excel. Now, if you are not following us, hey, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, share this with someone who can probably use it because as you probably know, as we're going to talk about shortly, the job market is still challenging. So the more you know, the more you can strategize. So hit that share button. Also, follow me on my social media at Exit to Excel on Instagram, TikTok, and coming soon on LinkedIn. And also send me a DM or send me an email. I would love to hear from you. I've been, communicating with a number of you on my social media. You've been, giving me some really good ideas for topics. So keep it coming. I love to hear from you. So now let's get into today's topic. And I want to talk about why you're getting mixed messages around the job market. One is because the media loves sensational headlines, right? That's what sells news. AI will replace all jobs. The great resignation continues. Nobody wants to work in the office anymore. But here's what I know from being in the room when these decisions are made. The reality is a lot more nuanced. And so that's what I want to share with you. This is what we're actually seeing when it comes to layoffs. Now, the unemployment rate in August was 4.3%, which was unchanged from the prior month. And the number of unemployed people that we have right now is about 7.4 million, a lot. Now, this is what's concerning. Long-term employed, meaning that people who've been unemployed for about 27 weeks or more, it remains high. About 25.7% of all unemployed people. Now, if you listen to a podcast I did a couple months ago, I talked about Black October. October tends to be a month that a lot of companies conduct layoffs because they're trying to make their year end numbers. Now, we've already seen over 3,500 companies announce cuts since January. And we're also seeing record hiring in certain sectors. But the unemployment rate is still historically low. So I know it's kind of confusing, right? So let's break down what's really happening. The job market isn't bad or good, it's actually transforming. We are in the middle of one of the biggest transformation, in transformations in the workplace than we've seen since the Industrial Revolution. And most people don't really know how to interpret the signs. So that's where AI powered analysis really comes in handy. So I'm going to give you an AI prompt where you can cut through the noise and really try to figure out what is what. And the prompt is analyze current job market trends in and put your industry there using data from the past 6 months. Ignore sensational headlines and focus on quantitative metrics, job postings, salary trends, skill requirements, and regional variations. And tell me what patterns emerge. Now, once you get this analysis, this is what I want you to do with it. If you see that job postings are increasing, you'll want to position yourself aggressively and negotiate from a position of strength. That means there is demand for your role. If you see salary trends declining, then you will want to focus on non monetary benefits and more long term opportunity. If you're seeing more new skills keep popping up in the postings, you will want to prioritize learning those skills immediately. And if certain regions are showing growth, then you may want to consider geographic strategy changes. Now, we're going to talk about all of these a little bit more in detail and how to address these trends. But the key is looking at data and not headlines, then making strategic moves based on what the data is actually telling you. Now, let's take a look at the first trend, and that is the AI skills paradox. And this is probably the biggest trend that everybody is talking about, and that is AI and automation. Everyone is deathly afraid that AI is going to take or is already taking all of the jobs. But here's what most people don't know: AI isn't replacing jobs uniformly, it is actually creating a skills paradox. So here's what's really happening: routine tasks are being automated across all industries. And depending on where you're working, you're probably seeing that already. I mean, shoot, look at, for example, look at the self checkouts, right? Whether you go to Publix, Walmart, Kroger, whatever, we're starting to see more self checkouts. Well, that is an example of routine tasks being automated. Another one, demand for AI adjacent skills is exploding. Well, what are AI adjacent skills? That means where you are working in the job, but you are using AI to do that job either better or faster. Now, next, companies need people who can work with AI, not necessarily be replaced by it. And then the jobs that are being eliminated are different from the jobs being created. And that's where the paradox comes in. Now, from my HR experience, here's what I'm seeing companies desperately need. Companies are desperate for people who can prompt engineer and manage AI tools. I'm also seeing where there's a demand for data analysts who can interpret AI outputs. I'm also seeing where there's demand for customer service reps who can handle complex issues that AI can't resolve or solve. I'm also seeing where there's a demand for project managers who can coordinate human AI workflows. And there's also a demand for content creators who can add human creativity to AI generated material. Now, look, there's a lot of demand in these areas. The skills gap is real, and companies are struggling to find people with these hybrid human AI skills. Now, where we're also seeing a great deal of growth is in tech roles, particularly for software developers, database administrators, and database architects. These are roles that are being fueled by the demand for AI, digital transformation, and data solutions. Now, I'm going to share with you a prompt where you can kind of determine what job opportunities might exist and where it might be going. So here it is here, and I'll also put it down below. Identify the top 10 AI tools being adopted and put in your industry. And for each tool, list what task it automates, what new human skills it requires, and what job opportunities it creates. And then help me develop an AI enhancement plan for my current role. Now, once you get that information, I want you to take these action steps. Now, for the automated tasks that it outlines, you need to prepare to transition away from those responsibilities. And you want to do it before your job is eliminated. Because trust me, for people whose job is majority, you know, very, simple tasks that can be easily automated, those are jobs that are being, eliminated. So you'll want to transition away from those responsibilities ASAP. For the required new skills that it identifies, you want to create a 90-day learning plan with specific resources. For the new job opportunities that it identifies, you want to update your LinkedIn and your resume to reflect those AI competencies. And then for your current role, find ways that you can integrate AI into your job through it projects or special assignments that will allow you to one, you know, enhance and work on that skill, but also to demonstrate your adaptability. Now, the people who are going to win in this transition and in this paradox are the people who see AI as their co pilot and not as their replacement. These are people who are leaning in to leverage AI and they're using it to become more productive, more valuable, and more strategic. Now, the people who are going to miss out and lose in this moment are the people who are pushing back on AI, who are resistant to AI, who are ignoring AI, or assuming that it will not affect their industry. Now, spoiler alert, it is absolutely impacting every industry. So please, you got to stay ahead of this because you don't want to be one of these people who, falls behind because they're not staying up to date. Okay, so let's talk about the second trend, and that is the geography shift. So, this is where the location of jobs is fundamentally changing, and most people are missing out on the opportunity. Now, since COVID, I would say, especially in the past year or two, we're absolutely seeing a lot of companies requiring their employees to come back to the office. And we're seeing a lot more hybrid models, but we're also still seeing a lot of remote jobs. And the fact of the matter is, those jobs are not going away, the hybrid or the remote jobs. But here's what's happening: is creating geographic arbitrage opportunities that most people are not leveraging. So here's what's happening: high cost cities are losing certain job types to lower cost areas, but high value specialized roles are concentrating in major hubs. Also, remote work is creating national, not just local job competition. I'm sure if you've been in the job market, you've been seeing that. And then some industries are going fully distributed while others are becoming more centralized. So here's what I've been seeing from working in Fortune 500 companies. Companies are more and more segmenting their workforce geographically. So for the roles that are strategic and client facing and the leadership roles, they are being centrally located in the expensive hubs, right? Like New York, DC, Chicago. But the operational, analytical, and back office and support roles are moving towards lower cost areas or even going fully remote. So the thing to think about here is the role that you're in. And if the role you're in benefits from being in a major market or major hub, or if you could increase your quality of life by moving to a lower cost area. And again, it depends on the role that you're in and where you're seeing the market go as it relates to your role in your industry. Trend number 3 is the generational workforce collision. Now, this is something that probably myself and a lot of HR people are looking at and having to manage very closely. We're now at the point where we have 4 generations in the workforce right now, and each generation has different expectations, and it creates both opportunities and challenges. So let's go through the generational breakdown and see what that looks like. So Gen Zs, these are people born between 1997 and 2012. They prioritize flexibility, mental health, and purpose-driven work. Millennials tend to seek more advancement opportunities and work-life balance, while Gen Xers, those born between 1965 and 1980, they tend to be in leadership roles, but we're feeling the squeeze from younger and older workers. And then baby boomers, those born between 1946 and 64, they tend to delay retirement, and they're now competing for roles, that the Gen Xers and millennials and Gen Zers are also going after. So what does this mean for your career? Now, if you are a Gen Zer or a millennial, you may have leverage in negotiating around flexibility and remote work, but you will need to prove your value pretty quickly. If you're a Gen Xer, you're in your prime earning years, but you will need to stay current with technology and adapt to changing workplace cultures. And if you're a boomer, your experience is very valuable, but you may need to actively address ageism and make sure you're showing technological competence. So those are the challenges that, some of the generations are having. And companies are also having challenges managing the expectations of all these groups. And the ones that are able to figure out how to leverage each generation's strengths while addressing their needs are the ones that are going to be able to recruit and retain the best talent. And what it means for you is that you will want to position yourself as someone who can bridge the generational gap, regardless of which generation you're in. So let's talk about trend number 4. Trend number 4 is the skill velocity problem. Now, this is something that is not being talked about a great deal, but it's something that everyone needs to be aware of. And this is how quickly some skills are becoming obsolete. Skills that didn't exist 2 years ago are now mandatory in a number of roles. So here are some examples from, some Fortune 500 companies and what we're seeing. Marketing roles are now requiring AI prompt engineering. Finance positions now need data visualization skills. HR roles, we're now seeing that they are requiring more and more people analytics capabilities. And sales jobs need social selling and also AI power prospecting. Now, the half life of learned skills is shrinking. So, what you learned in college is probably 50% obsolete, or it will be in the next 5 years. Now, if you want to analyze the evolution of skills, you can use this prompt here and then use it to come up with a game plan. The prompt is analyze the evolution of skills required for your role over the past 5 years and project what new skills will be essential in the next 2 to 3 years. Create a learning roadmap that keeps me ahead of skill obsolescence, including specific courses, certifications, and practice opportunities. Now, this is how you turn your output into an action plan. For the emerging skills that it identifies, Start learning them before they become requirements in your job postings. And again, that is also going to probably provide some job security in your current job as well. For declining skills, you'll want to gradually transition those responsibilities, but focus on building new competencies at the same time. For whatever certification recommendations you find out, prioritize those based on the industry credibility and the employer recognition. And then for the opportunities to practice, you'll want to look for, either, opportunities to volunteer, or even in your current organization, opportunities to volunteer for projects where you can apply these new skills in a low risk situation or environment. Now, the key here is, and you're probably hearing this in your organizations now, I know I heard in my last organization, is continuous learning. You probably see continuous learning as a, value in a number of organizations because that is how quickly, the world is evolving and skills as well. So companies look for people who have a growth mindset, people who are continuously learning. So you want to become a perpetual learner and not someone just with experience, because companies are absolutely more and more valuing people who can adapt and acquire new skills quickly. So, what does all this mean for your career strategy? What it means is that you have to stop thinking about job security and start thinking about skill security. So, this is what I want you to do. I want you to do the following action plan. One is learn to work with AI tools in your field. And I've given you an AI prompt, that should give you a pretty good idea on how to do that. For your geographic strategy, decide if you should be location dependent or location independent. Generational positioning. Leverage your age group strengths while addressing its challenges. Now, know that if you are a Gen Xer or a baby boomer, we are being looked to more and more to bridge the gap between our generation and the Gen Zers and the millennials. And these companies are really appreciating that. So if you're able to kind of build that into your forte, so to speak, then I think you'll find a way to really be able to leverage that in your career going forward. Okay. And then lastly is continuous learning. Develop the skills before you need them and not after. So here's the bottom line: the job market isn't broken, it's evolving. And evolution rewards those who are going to adapt strategically, not those who are just going to shrink back and hope that it goes back to normal. Because trust me, we aren't going back to normal. The trends that I've shared today aren't predictions, they're already here. These are the realities that I'm seeing in Fortune 500 companies. We're seeing the AI integration. We're seeing the geographical shifts. We're seeing the multi-generational dynamics, and we're seeing the skill velocity. Is not coming, it's already here. So you want to make sure you're doing everything that you can to prepare and also stay ahead of the curve. And I'm always going to be here as your untraditional HR business partner, the one that's on your side that's always going to help you to do that. So until next time, take care. See you then.